Hey, it's Brian Goulet of Goulet Pen Company and Ink Nouveau. This is just a quick follow-up video to the TWSBI Mini. I did a TWSBI Mini review, and in it I kind of alluded to the fact that you might be able to stick a 540 nib on your TWSBI Mini because the TWSBI Mini doesn't have separate nib units available for it yet. I alluded to that fact, and I did a little more exploration due to some questions that I was getting asked, so I thought it kind of warranted a separate video. So here I go, a little bit deeper into the swapping on the TWSBI Mini nibs. So here I have a whole collection of TWSBI pens. I got 3 different 540s and a TWSBI Mini. The TWSBI Mini uses a smaller nib that's different than the 540, but I noticed that the nib housing was the same on the 540 as it is for the TWSBI Mini. So I thought to myself, well gee, wouldn't that be cool if you could swap out the nibs themselves between the two pens? That would be kind of nice because the Mini doesn't have separate nibs available, and there's a lot of people that already have TWSBI pens, and you may have, especially if you have an italic nib from your 540, that's something that's not available on the Mini at all. So I alluded to it in my other video, but I thought it warranted more explanation here. So basically here is the nib unit as it comes. It's got a grip section here, which basically if you grab it and then kind of push the unit out, it'll just pop right out of there. So there's your grip section, and that needs to stay with the pen. That is different on the 540 and on the Mini. But the internal parts of the grip section where the nib, I call it the nib housing, I guess. So the housing here is like this little black part, and it's got a thread on the end that actually feeds into the pen, and then it's got the black feed in here, and then the nib sits on top of the feed. That's the way the thing is kind of structured. So the housing appears to be identical. The only difference really is that the O-ring that's used to hold or kind of seal up the nib housing to the grip section here. Let me see if I can get you a little bit better picture here. The O-ring that's used on there is a little bit thicker on the 540 than it is on the Mini, so it's a different O-ring there. It doesn't appear to make too much of a difference though, and I'll show you that here in a second. So the TWSBI Mini, I've taken out the nib unit. I have a 1.1 millimeter italic from my 540. With the little bit bigger O-ring. Now, of course, you could always swap the O-rings if you really wanted to, but, just for the sake of experimentation, I'm going to leave that O-ring on there from the 540. So you put this thing on here, and it doesn't hold in here really super tight, just as it is, but that's okay because the nib housing is threaded right here, and that's what's actually going to fit on to the pen. So you screw that on here. It'll catch the body onto the back of that housing. And then you want to tighten it down a decent amount. You don't want to really over tighten it because then you can risk splitting that plastic grip section over time, which is something that TWSBI has battled with in the past. So you don't want to exacerbate that problem, but you do want to get it in there so it's secure. And then the main issue that I had was two things. Basically, if you look at the TWSBI the italic nib, the wings are much wider. So you want to make sure that those wings aren't going to scrape on the inside of the cap. And you also want to make sure that the length is not going to be a problem, so that the tip of the nib isn't going to slam into the top when you go to screw it in there. Just eyeballing it, it didn't look like the length was going to be a problem because it appeared to be about the same. But you can see it's visually wider. So when I go to put the thing in here, so this is a TWSBI Mini with the 540 italic nib. When I screw it on here, I don't feel any resistance or scraping from the wings of the nib, so that to me doesn't seem like it's going to be a problem. And then if I look close enough through here, I can see, I'm going to try and show it on the video, but it's really tough to show you, especially with the glare like it is. I have a little bit of space right there so that you can, dang, that glare is killing me. Okay, so I can't really get it face on there, but I have a little tiny bit of space. There you go, you can kind of see it there. Tiny bit of space between the nib and the back of that insert. So it does appear like it's going to be able to fit in there okay. Now, if you don't have this housing screwed on quite tight enough, then that means that your nib could be a little bit further out. Still could be secured in here, but a little bit further out then you might risk hitting the back of that thing, but you probably won't run into that problem. So it would appear from what I'm finding here like it is going to work. The only thing I don't know is over time, you know, are there any problems that are going to develop from having this bigger nib on here? I don't think that there will be, because I'm not seeing anything physically that's touching or scraping or anything like that that should wear it down. So I think you should be okay. And then of course, if you want to see what the nib is like. Now, I almost hesitated even mentioning this, especially given the Italic nib, because frankly, the Italic nibs were not all that widely available even with the 540. And I get asked a lot about the Mini and the VAC 700, about Italic nibs for those. And frankly, TWSBI has had kind of a time sourcing out these Italic nibs anyway. So they're in short supply. I can't remember the last time I saw them available. But so there you go. Anyway, there's the Italic nib. I, you know, haven't really properly inked it up and whatnot to be able to show you a proper demonstration of how to use it, but that shows you that it can be done. And then, you know, if you happen to have other TWSBI nibs too, they looks like they should fit too. You know, I've got like another nib here from a different 540. This one is a broad nib. I would expect, you know, this is the same kind of thing where, you know, the wings are going to be about the same and the length appears to be the same for the regular nib as it is for the Italic. And then I've got, that's with a newer 540 that has a Bach nib on it. And then the older nib is actually smaller altogether, the Schmidt nib. So I really don't think that there would be a problem using that nib on there. One question I get asked a lot is, how does the Bach and the Schmidt nibs differ on the 540? I know this is kind of getting away from the TWSBI Mini here thing, but I get asked this a lot. So if you're holding them side by side, you can tell there's a difference just because the Bach nib on the left is bigger. Well, that's pretty obvious to tell when you have the two pens next to each other, but it's not so easy to tell if you have them independently of each other. The one kind of giveaway that you have, and I'm going to see if I can get this on video because this is a really tough thing to capture. But if you look at the stamping of the TWSBI name on the nib, okay, there we go. It's going to say TWSBI down here. The older Schmidt nibs just have a single stamping. It almost looks kind of like an engraving, so it's just a single line. Whereas the newer Bach says TWSBI in kind of an outline type of font. And that's really the way that you can tell the difference between the two, is the stamping there. So you've got like a single engraved line writing out TWSBI versus an outline of writing. So that's how you can tell that. But it looks to me, from what I'm seeing here, that you should be able to, using this kind of hack method, you should be able to switch out all of your different 540 nibs on your Mini and be okay. Again, I haven't used them for a long period of time, so I don't know if there's any effects, you know, that may creep up over time, but it would appear that you should be able to do it. I hope this helps you out. As you can see, the TWSBI Mini can successfully have its nibs swapped. Of course, whether you can find separate TWSBI 540 nib units will be a whole other issue, but there's a lot of 540s already out there. So if you want to switch and swap through your collection of 540s and Minis, that is an option for you. So as always, thanks for spending time with me here. Hopefully this was able to help you out a little bit. If you have any other questions, feel free to post on Ink Nouveau or on the YouTube video here in the comments section. Thanks so much for watching, and right on.